This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was no barrier, and time it had no hope. Free to come and free to go. Free to come and free to go. Open up the book of stars. Open up the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Karmic Evolution's Astrologically Speaking. I'm your host, Sherry Horn Hassan of Karmic Evolution Astrology, coming to you on July 22nd, 2021 from Contact Talk Radio. Just a quick reminder that the show aims to bring you the truth about astrology and your soul's karmic evolution. My guest today is professional astrologer LYNN KOINER, who I'll be introducing properly in just a few minutes. But first, just my usual housekeeping stuff. I am not going to go through all the stuff about my Facebook page and joining my email list. So if anyone's a regular listener, they know that information. I have not put out a newsletter for a while. There's been a lot of personal stuff going on. So I just wanted to let everyone know I will be back soon and just to hang in there. But if you do want to join my email list, you can go to my Facebook page, Karmic Evolution, and join it that way, or you can send me an email at Sherry, SHERI, at karmicevolution.com. Go to my karmicevolution.com website. And if you've missed any shows, any of the radio shows, podcasts, and you want to re-listen to a specific one, just go to karmicevolution.com, click on radio show on the upper right-hand corner of the banner, and scroll down the page, and you can access anything you want from this week's show to, back to 2007 when I first started. And finally, I continue to offer my discounted 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading to my listeners for only $99. So if you want to gain greater consciousness about your soul's true mission and purpose in this lifetime, if you'd like to move from chaos to clarity in a particular area of your life, relationships, career, finances, health, if you're interested in learning to heal old karmic wounds and co-create your own future happiness and success, or you'd like to awaken to your true potential and highest destiny in this lifetime, it's easy. When you take advantage of my special discounted offer for listeners, a 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading for only $99. Simply email me, again, that's Sherry, SHERI, at karmicevolution.com, and we'll get your reading booked today. At almost half the regular price, conscious awareness has never been so easy or so affordable. Okay, so let's get on to this week's Astro news you can use. The sun moves into proud, fiery, creative, magnanimous Leo today, July 22nd, where it remains until August 22nd. We're offered the ability this month to increase our courage to show the world our true, uniquely individual solar self without holding back. However, the sun's ingress follows yesterday, that's July 21st, entrance by Venus into nitpicky, detail-oriented, how can I not see that flaw, often critical Virgo, where she'll stay until August 16th. Now, combined with the sun's Leo energy, Venus in Virgo, which is the earth sign related to practicality, logic, and analysis of detailed information for the purpose of actually drawing a conclusion, this month can potentially help us ground any grand creative plans that come to us now. But the Leo sun's quincunx to Jupiter retrograde in Pisces which will occur later tonight or early tomorrow morning, depending on the July 22nd or 23rd, depending on your time zone, may test our ability to make promises that we can actually keep. Jupiter, of course, is expansive, so we tend to overplan sometimes and overestimate. But an intense Aquarius full moon occurs later tomorrow on July 23rd at 7:37 p.m. Pacific and 10:37 p.m. Eastern at 1 degree and 26 minutes of the Aquarius Leo polarity, which asks us to release any attachment to excessive selfishness, pride, or arrogance, and to remember we're here to add our individual unique creative spark to that of humanities as a whole, rather than trying to always keep the spotlight on ourselves. And this means recognizing that we're not the only ones on the planet, and that our individual needs or wants or rights don't trump those of society or humanity as a whole. You exist as a solar creative, uniquely deserving individual, the Aquarius moon tells the Leo sun at this lunation, but don't forget you're still part of the human race and not separate from the rest of the group of humans here on planet Earth. So it goes without saying that this kind of energy is obvious now throughout the collective, particularly here in the US, as we grapple with an increase of COVID-19 cases due to the highly contagious Delta variant spreading rapidly among the unvaccinated population here. This Aquarius full moon implores us, as the moon reflects the light of the Leo sun back onto itself, thus revealing the Leo archetype's shadow side, to release any selfishness or need to focus attention away from others and onto ourselves, release excessive pride or arrogance, as I said before, and replace them with a more humanitarian, we're all in this together, so let's find a creative solution mindset. Now, the Leo archetype revolves around developing the courage to be brave enough to combine our individuality with others in order to accomplish more than we might do on our own. But because getting lost in the crowd, being overlooked, or disregarded can often prove to be one of Leo's greatest sorrows, this Aquarius full moon reminds the Leo sun to hold strong to one's individuality while at the same time recognizing our need to contribute creatively to coming up with solutions for the greater good of the whole, as I mentioned. So, instead of thinking as Marlon Brando's character in the movie On the Waterfront did when he said, I could have been a contender, I could have been a somebody, we're tasked now with understanding that, of course, our specific talents and aptitudes are important, valuable, and needed, but they're needed more as part of being, part of making up the greater whole than for the self-gratification of being individually praised or desirous of reaping the benefits of fame and fortune for ourselves alone. It occurs to me that Dr. Anthony Fauci, whose name I'm sure everyone will recognize, actually represents the integration of this lunation's energy perfectly. I mean, he became a star at the beginning of the coronavirus spread here in the US, but the reason for his ascension into the public domain, where whether you love him or hate him, he's clearly received huge publicity and attention over the past year and a half, revolves around the work he's done on infectious diseases and helping to prevent their spread to the masses. So don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being proud of being noticed and praised for one's performance. And that will become more of a theme and a topic for the next Leo new moon, which occurs on August 8th. However, right now, the heavens are calling us to look in another direction. So the intensity of this Aquarius full moon centers around the Aquarius moon's closeness to Pluto in Capricorn, which she passes just a few hours before the exact lunation tomorrow on July 23rd, and her waxing conjunction toward Saturn in Aquarius, which exacts on July 24th. So with the Aquarius moon just past a conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn, emotions run very high now, especially around topics about which we may more easily lose our sense of perspective. That makes this a time during which we may regret losing our cool now, because in the long term, we really won't feel as intensely jealous or possessive or controlling about the same subjects. So the Leo Sun, which is also past its opposition to Pluto, and that exacted on July 17th, illustrates where power struggles exist, perhaps about people or circumstances which we'll come to find we're not really as invested in as we think right now. However, these energies set the stage for a great deal of drama, something with which the archetypal energy of a Leo Sun can often closely align, even without the extra added help of crisis-provoking Pluto. So, witness the recent trips by famous billionaires Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos. And here we see the Sun is a prominent person. Pluto equals power and joint resources, including other people's money, to the edge of outer space. Aquarius, very prominent in the sky, this past week, right? So reportedly, Bezos is getting tons of pushback. Again, the Sun opposite Pluto, Moon conjoined Pluto, and that equals controversy and power struggles, because he told his Amazon employees after he, came back from his trip to the edge of outer space, that this trip was funded by them. In other words, he was trying to say, oh, all you wonderful people made this trip possible for me. And, and then extolled the virtues, of course, of being able to send average normal human beings, maybe not, into space at some point. But being told this by one of the world's richest men did not exactly go over well with those who've been fighting to unionize, receive higher wages, and create safer working conditions at Amazon, especially since many Amazon employees have been and still are among our first line responders during this pandemic. So it would seem that the proverb, pride cometh before a fall, was more prominently illustrated as we watched someone, aka Bezos, his hubris apparently get the best of him, as he appeared to be completely oblivious to the problems facing the many in his quest for glory for himself. So let's bring this down to a more personal level. And if we do that, this Aquarius full moon reminds us that the real power struggle is not with those outside of ourselves. It's an internal one. So exploring now at this lunation as it begins to wane, or meditating on where we've neglected or refused to take others into consideration at the expense of our own quest for recognition is really what we need to release now. Now, meanwhile, Mercury in Cancer is trining Neptune in Pisces. This is waxing during this lunation, but it'll exact on July 24th, and that stimulates our creative imagination and makes this a good time to escape from humdrum routine by reveling in romantic dreams and illusions and learning more about metaphysical and spiritual subjects. So there's a little bit of a message here at this lunation that we might be able to let go of some of its intensity by taking a higher road, a higher, more spiritual, metaphysical road. And again, that can lighten the intensity a bit because it's also going to be followed on July 25th, also waxing at this lunation, Mercury's opposition to Pluto. So in other words, the Sun opposed Pluto July 17th, and now it's going to be followed on the 24th by Mercury's opposition. And that can lead us into deeper explorations of the mind and allow us to make some headway during this lunation's waning period, during the actual lunation as well. However, this particular aspect can cause conflict in our communications, as it might serve to further fan the flames related to trying to control what other people think or how they perceive certain situations. So best if we try not to get caught up in idealistic, propagandist, or obsessive thinking that can pervert our perceptions because others try to force their opinions, rules, or other edicts upon us. Instead, my advice is to try to steer clear of said propaganda by fact-checking, which is something that Venus in Virgo would advise us to do, and in fact be very, very proud of us for doing. I think it's simple to say there's not enough of that. There's so much information out there that's vague and implies things, but doesn't actually use hard and cold facts, or takes facts and twists them into or distorts them into different connotations. And that leaves people with certain ideas that are not necessarily verifiable when you come down to actually parsing out all of the details and putting them into that larger analytical conclusion, which is what I said before Venus and Virgo can help us do. So conversations about those things while she's in Virgo to, like I said before, lessen some of the hubris of the, or potential hubris of the Leo sun. Now, finally, Mercury will enter Leo on July 27th next week, where he'll stay until August 11th. And of course, he'll be joining the sun in Leo. And that could create, a stronger, more boisterous groundswell, hue and cry from certain individuals within the collective who want to be noticed as special and, separate from the group as a whole. And when Jupiter retrogrades back into Aquarius again on July 28th, which is where the King of the Gods will remain until December 28th, which is quite a while, he'll be reprising some of the aspects he already made earlier this spring and expand the need for groups to find their voice as we work still on integrating the energies of the current ongoing Saturn square to Uranus through to the end of this year. So we'll talk more about that on next week's show. But now I want to leave plenty of time to introduce and welcome my guest back to the show today. And I'm going to give you her background. A full-time professional astrologer since June of 1969, LYNN KOINER is the current president of the Annapolis National Council for Geocosmic Research, and she serves as NCGR's international liaison who conducts interesting and insightful interviews with astrologers from around the world. A research astrologer and international speaker, Lynn's lectured on topics as varied as medical astrology and the psychological patterns of disease, solar max and human behavior, the septile aspect of the multidimensional experiences, ghosts, UFO sightings, and near-death experiences, fixed stars and the chakras, retrogrades, natal, transiting, and progressed, trans-Pluto, Planet X, Eris, and the Centaurs, among many, many others. Lynn has also served as president, vice president, and newsletter editor for both the Baltimore and Annapolis chapters of the NCGR, contributed her research on trans-Pluto to astrologer Noel Till's Astrology's Special Measurements, and been featured in James Lewis's The Astrology Book, among her many other accomplishments. A two-time recipient of the Sims Pounds Award for Best Conference Speaker by the American Federation of Astrologers, and instructor for Kepler College's Department of Professional Training, Medical Astrology Curriculum, Lynn offers a free monthly astrology column, posts on astrological tidbits, and discusses medical topics on the Astrology and Healing Forum at haforum.co.uk. She works also with Linda Furiate, Media Director for the International Academy of Astrology Committee. So, Lynn, hello, how are you? It's so wonderful to have you back on the show again.
Well, that was a very long introduction. I prefer short ones, and I actually teach for the International Academy of Astrology, Ina Stanley's group. I do a course or series of courses. There's 7 courses actually for certification as a certified medical astrologer, and if people complete that series, that curriculum, they do really well out in the astrological world. But most of the people are already in like holistic practices or actual medical doctors. Just for something on the side, the full-time medical doctors aren't really the greatest students, but the holistic people, the and everything, they're great. But the, like regular MDs, I don't know what, they never ask questions.
Lynn, that's interesting because it goes right to the heart of I would imagine the either confusion or discussion between what is astrology versus science, right? I mean, they're scientifically trained. Do you think that's
when
part of their problem?
yeah, but they have to know astrology. This is an advanced course, so
Right.
you have to know something about astrology. So they're in astrology, and you said you were interested in Hygeia. Why don't I just do that now, since we're talking about doctors?
Well,
How
I just wanted to
actually got-
mention that the reason I was interested in Hygeia is because at this lunation also, which I didn't mention earlier, we're going to have a Hygeia, hang on, let me check. Hygeia will conjunct, or Venus, trans-Pluto, and Hygeia will all be conjunct at between 1 and 2 degrees of Virgo. So, and there will be opposing Jupiter. So that's the reason that I was kind of interested in. Plus, I know she's the female healer, in Greek mythology. So feel free. You got the floor.
Yeah, it's an asteroid, and I first got interested in it with a medical student at Johns Hopkins. I know he said that he had developed adult onset epilepsy. And I said, well, that is a malabsorption problem. And he says, yes. Sometimes when you, like if you have a celiac disease, and it's not like running to the toilet all the time, you're not really absorbing your nutrients, and that can lead to like seizures. And he said, well, I've been working with Hygeia, and he said it had to do with having balance in your life. Like the house that it is in, it's where you need to have balance in your life. If you don't have balance, like say you have it in the 7th house, if you don't have balance in your relationships, then you might get sick. When you're doing too much. For me, I was doing too much for others, and I got the Epstein-Barr virus, which is like mononucleosis. I thought I was going to die. So when your life gets out of balance, it can affect your health. But when it is, all of my students have it prominent in their chart in some way. And if it's prominent in your chart, it always indicates an interest in medical subjects. And, there's a wide range of holistic to more conventional medical subjects. And also when it's aspected, I have my oldest ongoing client since 1980. I remember her progressed Mars was making a favorable aspect to Hygeia. And I said, Patty, I know you're not going to give up your work, your office work, to become a massage therapist, but what is this about medical people in your life? And she says, I'm not doing any accounting work for anyone except these doctors. I've got several doctors I'm working with. They're setting up clinics in Africa. And so I'm just doing accounting work for these doctors. So when it's aspected in your chart, you may not study holistic medicine, but all of a sudden you may meet people who are holistic practitioners.
Well, that's interesting, Lynn. I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to say it's interesting what you're saying. I have an 11-degree Virgo rising, and I have Hygeia at 11 Taurus. It also conjoins my 5-degree Taurus sun. And when Saturn hit Hygeia, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so I think one of the reasons, there are a multitude of reasons. I'm not a medical astrologer, but medicine became a large portion of my area of interest because I had to become my own best patient advocate, right? But I've wondered if the trine from Hygeia, it's a partile trine, to the ascendant is what really helped the outcome become more positive, because it definitely was for me,
Absolutely, because I see it as a benefic. I don't, when it's, even if it's a bad aspect to it, it really, I feel, is a good thing. It attracts the right people into your life. It attracts the right doctors, practitioners into your life.
Exactly.
It gets you in it, because while I have been interested in medical astrology since the late 1960s, I know when I got the Epstein-Barr virus, and that was in 2004, it totally changed my approach to medical astrology. It's only when you get really sick that you learn so many things.
Yeah, and tell me about it.
And so it's, when you develop multiple sclerosis, then you really focus on medical topics and remedies and things that are benefic for you. And it really puts you on a totally new course in your life. And that's really what Hygeia does. So I always see it as a benefic.
Well, you know, you had mentioned too, I remember going to one of your lectures where you were talking about trans-Pluto, or I think you've written about it, that trans-Pluto was often present also in charts. I just put it into my chart to look to see where it was on my natal chart. That trans-Pluto had something to do with some of these autoimmune diseases as well. It's prominent right now. So my first question is just about that, because that's fascinating. And then about, whether you see any relationship to COVID-19, what's going on now with this minor conjunction.
I think the COVID-19 was really connected to the grand alignment in Taurus. Other people had predicted it, but how often we have pandemics? So it's
right.
But it was really true. Having that large alignment in Taurus is really what has triggered this pandemic. And what is interesting, a lot of people have gotten this, and I haven't looked at all the charts. I'm going to say I have about 15 charts of people who got the COVID virus. And when I first started researching it, I observed that first, all of these people, they all survived, had Neptune first afflicting their Mars. And then I saw with J.K. Rowling, Neptune was opposing her moon in Virgo. Now, the chart I use, which I feel is a really good one, has the stellium in the 12th house. And it's interesting, people have a bad reputation for poor Mercury retrograde, but when Mercury turned retrograde by progression in her chart in the 12th house, that's when she started writing the Harry Potter books.
Interesting.
And really, it was all the characters are about her and what she went through. So I noticed that the Neptune aspects could make you vulnerable to getting the virus, but not one of them died. It was generally when it was a Pluto aspect that they really sick or maybe crossed over. I can't say more than that. I really feel trans-Pluto is more associated with autoimmune diseases. Trans-Pluto I have as the ruler of Virgo. And on my website, LYNNKOINER.com, you can go there. There is the chapter from the Noel Till book. And then there is Trans-Pluto Brief. It's just a little handout I used to give people of what the ideal of trans-Pluto is, which is wholeness and integration. First, you're subjected to the critical perfectionist environment, which is a very common one. Don't put your clothes away. Don't do this. Clean up your room. Aunt Harriet's coming. So perfectionism is very common. It's not always an abusive parent. But when you have someone who's very sensitive, who internalizes criticism really goes to the liver. The liver is ruled by Cancer, Virgo, the two lobes. Criticism is absorbed by the liver. And so it has an impact on autoimmune, because when you start absorbing and taking in the criticisms of others and you believe it, then your own body starts attacking itself in terms of an autoimmune disease. Trans-Pluto also be very healing, but it's also healing in terms of wholeness and integration, putting yourself back together the way that you want to be, not the way others want you to be. And it's also doing what's best for the whole. Sometimes when trans-Pluto is prominent in a chart that has medical interest, it has to do with someone who's very interested in wholeness and integration as a healing pattern, like mind, body, spirit.
Now that's interesting. That's interesting, given this lunation. I know you're not, you didn't spend, I know you didn't have time or didn't, spend much time on the lunation itself, but that's very interesting what you just said in terms of, more mundane astrology, right? It's like trans-Pluto is with Hygeia and Venus at a time when we're having the, some of what I described, right? The shadow side of Leo being what we need to release. People can agree with that or not, but that's my opinion, right? That there's this push towards greater wholeness, in the medical realm, right? You know, given what's been going on. It's interesting. Anyway, continue.
Well,
It's fascinating.
I know the full moon on August 22nd. The full moon is actually at 29 Leo Aquarius.
Right, it'll be a
And I do
second
a lot
Leo Aquarius full moon, right? So people understand. Go
of
ahead.
things at late degrees are often ending cycles. You know, full moons are often illumination cycles where you become aware of things. And planets at 29 degrees are connected with an ending cycle. It's a time to see what you have there, put a wrap on it, or get rid of it. If things become complicated, they don't work, then you have to let it go. So I find that August 22nd full moon has more to do with as an ending cycle. Ending cycles aren't always bad. You know, one ending cycle, I finished that chapter with Noel Till when my ending Mars was hit. So endings can mean, okay, I put a wrap on this, it's finished, let's get it published. And in other ways, it's, you know, this isn't working, we need to let it go. So that full moon has more to do with ending things that just don't work.
Fascinating, fascinating. Now, you mentioned to me earlier that, and we put it out on Facebook, that we're approaching solar max, and that this can affect people's health. Can you tell us a little more about that? Because I've never even heard of solar max. I'm not quite sure what it means and how long it might last.
I started following this back in 1999, and I was working with a physicist at the time. And the listeners, if you go to spaceweather.com, a lot of people go to that. And if you kind of scroll down on the left side, you'll come to a little box that says KP index. KP index indicates the ringing in the Earth's electromagnetic field. It's like the Earth has an aura. And when electrons or protons come from the sun and strike at our electromagnetic field, it starts to ring like being inside of a bell. Now, scientists or astronomers have said it's really just starting now, this beginning of solar max. Solar max is when you have a lot of sunspots. That's all it is. Okay. And it happens every 11 years. Yet the last one was a weak one. We didn't have that many sunspots, but there's a 22-year cycle, and so this one should be a strong one. What's important about health, and it's not just me, there was a Russian physicist, Alexander Dubrov, Dubrov. He wrote on biomagnetism and I think in health. And what it is, he researched when there were, you would call this ringing in the Earth's electromagnetic field, that you had more heart attacks, you had more health issues like the virus going around. It tends to compromise the immune system. But the things you can do, I've got this article written. I just don't know where to put it. I could put it on my website. I don't know how to transfer all the graphics. So
gotcha.
I may pay somebody to do that.
Right, I feel you.
If you scroll down, like every day or every couple of days, you can see if it's red. If the KP is ringing red, then there's a lot of ringing in the Earth's electromagnetic field. I discovered that I used to always have an ear infection starting when I was 6 months old. Wow. Every 11 years at solar max, I would have an ear infection. And that's one of the things that can happen during solar max.
So how do we know when it starts? So you're saying, how long does it last? Like, when is it going to? Is it happening now, or is it about to happen again? And how long does it last usually?
It's just starting now. It lasts a couple of years, but generally after 2022, if there's a lot of ringing, you're not going to notice. The body hasn't adjusted. It's been 11 years since we've had this, and it wasn't a very strong one. We didn't have a lot of sunspots. It's when it just begins, which is now and next year, that people are more sensitive. And how you know is you just go to spaceweather.com and scroll down on the left side until you see the KP index, and it'll tell you quiet or high. High is red when there's a lot of ringing in the Earth's electromagnetic field. And at that time, what you do, you don't sit and meditate. It's just going to make it worse.
Wow.
You need to move about, go walking, go to the mall, walk around. When you're moving, then you don't feel that movement in your energy field. Another thing is in your home, you should have what I call the cushioning effect. I remember I was writing about this, that on the solar max, I guess around 2000, I renovated my house and I cleaned everything out. When I walked through the house, it was like an echo effect. And I really had a very difficult time with that solar max. So then I got in overstuffed sofa, and now I have that in my house. I've ordered, because I'm renovating again, I've ordered big overstuffed sofa, big overstuffed chair, having pillows everywhere.
You need a little more Taurus energy, huh?
So what it is you have to cushion your environment, and that will protect you from your body sensing that ringing in the Earth's electromagnetic field.
Fascinating.
If anybody wants my article, I can send it to them, but I won't have my big computer set up, which has the almost finished article on it, until September. So after that, I can even post. I have two Facebooks. One is LYNN KOINER Medical Sharing, and the other is NCGR Annapolis. And so when my lower level is fixed and my office is up and running, I can tell people, if you want the article, you can have it, because it's just, what am I going to do with it? It's just to get it out and have people understand what's going on, because you can think you're crazy. If you're very sensitive to this, you can feel like, I feel like I'm going crazy. And if you just go and look for the KP index and say, oh, well, it's a solar max.
So, I'm going to give you more opportunity before we finish, to give everybody all of the contact information for you, so they can at least know where to send their email or sign up for, to get your email so they can ask you for these things. But we have about 15 minutes left. I just want to know, I know you wanted to talk about, and you're an expert at this, so I'm so thrilled to have you for it, talking about how to, or the signs of autism and some of its related diagnoses, Asperger's and things like attention deficit or ADHD in charts. Can you tell us a little bit about your background with that, and stuff that people would love to better understand?
I started collecting it some time ago. I get something, I subscribe to something. It's about $42 a year. It is consumerlab.com. And it rates different, they test different vitamins. Say they'll do the vitamin E's from different companies, and they'll tell you if someone passed or they didn't pass. Most people passed. And they posted research on autism, Asperger's, and ADHD that was done in Finland. And this really started me on looking at these charts, and I have quite a few. They're very different. Autism and ADHD and ADD they're all different things. And even under the category of ADD, ADHD, there are 6 categories. They're totally different types and have totally different signatures. I can't go through all of these now. I'd like to post it someplace. Maybe if I haven't, I can post it on my website once I get my desktop up and running. But what they did in Finland was, and this is the importance of probiotics, they were working with 1,700 women. Half of them took a probiotic while they were pregnant and while they were nursing. And it was just 10 billion cells. That's not a lot, because you can get 50 billion cells. But I find those really with cells that kind of upset your stomach. And they found that the women who did not take a probiotic, there was a 17% that the mothers had a child with ADHD, Asperger's, or autism. That's that's kind of the normal. 17% of a population now, which seems kind of high, would have that. The women who took probiotics, not one child had ADHD, autism, or Asperger's.
Wow.
And I talked to my doctor about this, and he said, they discovered that children, like babies that are born by cesarean, have a compromised immune system. They're more inclined to have asthma, maybe to have ADHD. They're more inclined to have maybe a compromised immune system. And so they discovered that when a baby comes through the birth canal the normal way, the mother's body coats that baby with a kind of a probiotic.
Right.
And now some of the hospitals, when children are cesarean, they just coat the baby with a probiotic to boost their immune system.
Interesting.
So I really started on that. And there are different rulerships. I know I posted on LYNN KOINER Medical Sharing one of the things with these people with autism, ADD, ADHD, they have a very high inflammation level. You can do a C-reactive protein test by the doctors, and generally people have multiple sclerosis, schizophrenia, not that these things are connected at all, multiple sclerosis, schizophrenia,
you never know.
Cancer, and autism have extremely high inflammation levels. And when you have internal inflammation, it just makes you antsy and hard to settle down. And it's very easy to get that down. Usually there is a test, the MTHFR test, which you were probably given when you were first diagnosed. And that tells not just inflammation levels, but is your body metabolizing the B vitamins. Now, I'm a good Virgo. Take every vitamin that comes out, they say is going to change your life, to see if it works, if it does anything. If it doesn't do anything, then I stop taking it. But one I always take, it's a cream that another doctor the girl was diagnosed with MS, and the MTHFR, she tested positive. It is neurobiologics. People can always write to me. They have a cream, I forget what it is, but neurobiologics. They sell this neurostabilizer. And what it is, it has those B vitamins and folates that the body can absorb better because you rub it on your skin. By prescription, you have to get cerefolin, but you can get this by yourself. And so I always rub that.
Wait, cerefolin. Cerefolin is the nutraceutical. They put my mother on that when she was elderly. So is that the same thing, are you saying? Or similar?
Yeah, I'm sure. It helped. If she wasn't metabolizing the B vitamins, then cerefolin is very powerful. It is like a pre-metabolized B vitamin, so it goes right into her system. You don't have to take that as a prescription. You can buy the rub on yourself.
Interesting, because her prescription with cerefolin was for to slow the progression of diagnosed dementia.
Okay. Well, sometimes people with dementia have high inflammation levels. So that was really to curb inflammation. And so it's something anybody can take. I should also say you don't take anything with B vitamins in it an hour before or after drinking coffee or black tea. There's something in it, and it's something very common in teas and coffee that destroys certain B vitamins. So you shouldn't, take your B vitamins with a swig of coffee.
Wow.
So that's why I feel the rub-on is easier. I can have my coffee in the morning and not worry, but I usually take my vitamins later in the day.
Right.
There's a lot of signatures for autism, and but there's a lot of afflictions to Mars, and of course that's going to raise inflammation levels. A lot of these people have food intolerances and digestive issues. And they're always shown by afflictions to the moon, even using the quincunx, the 150-degree aspect. I do allow wide orbs. I won't tell you what those orbs are because you'd fall off your chair, but I do allow wide orbs.
Not me.
And
I'm a psychological astrologer. I love white orbs.
Oh, a kindred spirit. They're not hard to
Yep.
find.
Right.
Another thing is almost all of the autistic children had planets out of bounds. Moon, Mars, Ceres, that's the larger asteroid. Sometimes Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury, but the Moon, Mars, and Ceres was the most common being out of bounds. Out of bounds means it goes way up high in the sky or way down low in the sky. That's the best way to kind of describe it. It goes above the sun's path. Most programs can kind of tell you, is it higher than 23, 26, either north or south declination. And but out of bounds, they usually occur in Gemini, Cancer, Sagittarius, Capricorn. So if you have planets in those areas, they may be out of bounds. And sometimes the onset occurs when a planet goes out of bounds by progression. Also, in a lot of developmental issues, there can be inconjuncts, and I always say that's the quincunx, the 150-degree aspect. I always call it the faulty wiring aspect, but that's not always a bad thing, because if you have a chance, read the book by Alan Epstein, The Psychodynamics of Inconjuncts, because he gives all the talents that go with the 150-degree aspect. And I know when I would do readings, because I'd go and look what he said about things, and I'd put it in a file, and I would ask the person, well, you have a talent for this. And they say, oh, that's exactly what I do. So I find with the inconjunct, it always gives you a talent. There's a frustration in pulling those two planets together, but it always gives you a talent if you're willing to take the time to do that.
Interesting.
So there can be the inconjunct aspect, and also planets in early degrees. Planets from 0 to 5 degrees. It's not quite as strong at 5 degrees, but from 0 to 5 degrees, these are kind of like out of bounds planets. But in this case, you weren't taught how to use the planet properly. And so sometimes it's early degrees and retrograde. That often indicates maybe the father wasn't really there to kind of give you some structuring or how to live in the real world. One friend of mine said, who had a beginning Saturn, she says, I didn't know how to live in the real world. My father dropped me off in front of the World Trade Building and told me, you've got a job for the summer, have a good life. And she says, but she says, I just observed what everyone was doing. And she says, and I developed my own system of responsibility and organization. And she says, now that's what people pay me for. Wow. Sometimes either the Christopher Steele, who wrote the Steele dossier about Russia interfering, he had Saturn at, I think, 0 degrees of Pisces retrograde. Now that's not a good Saturn. And I thought, well, he's really, it's kind of a handicap, but he's really learned to use that Saturn to be organized. But I've learned from people at the Spy Museum, he was a terrible researcher. He would get other people to do the work for him, and then he'd kind of listen to what they say and write it up. He really wasn't as organized, or he didn't teach himself well how to be organized, and his material was very flawed. So sometimes with a lot of early planets, you have to teach, this is my weird stuff. I always feel if you have a lot of early degree planets, it means you haven't spent a lot of time on planet Earth. Maybe you were here on Atlantis and said, boy, I'm never coming back here for a while. Now with all the technology, you're drawn back, but you don't know how to tie your shoelaces or it's like on planet Earth. I used to be able to see people's aura and tell if they were the good guys, but now I can't tell. And so having a lot of early planets means that you really haven't been here in a long time. And planet Earth, you stay with people who are kind of the Earth people who've been on this planet a number of times, can teach you how to fend for yourself. But you really have to learn or teach yourself how to live life in, say, relationships. With a 0 degrees Venus, how do you size up relationships? They often are clueless. And so you sometimes need to rely on good friends.
Interesting.
I will tell you a story. I had a class. There were 3 women who had 0 Venus in their charts. And after the class was over, there was only one man in the class. The guy left early, and these girls got into a fight about who he liked the best. He says, I think he liked me. No, I think he liked me. I said, girls, he works at Whitman Walker. He doesn't like any of you that way. He's gay. Oh, no.
That's too funny. That's hysterical.
So,
you know what it sounded like? Your description made it sound like when Eris rolls the golden apple down the banquet table for the fairest of them all, and the 3 goddesses are like, that's me. No, that's me. No, it's me.
That's it. That's it. So beginning planets are things you really have to teach yourself in this lifetime. And it's often helped to have a mentor to kind of help you do things, or find some type of discipline that helps you work with that planet. And so with regard to autism, I wonder if these individuals aren't they haven't been on this planet, and they come in and they're just different. But they, sometimes they teach people, they teach the parents and the family about unconditional love and loving someone unconditionally. So it may be that these are little aliens, and they're just different, and they haven't been here for a long time. And that doesn't mean you're not an old soul, but you can be an old soul from other dimensions, not just planet Earth.
Well, that makes me want to ask you, we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, but I do want to give you the opportunity to give out your contact information again. But do you see a prevalence of Uranian energy or Aquarian energy in charts like that?
No, I see that just looking through some of my notes. I don't often see that. I will tell you, there's many times there is a Taurus Scorpio axis in the chart. And Taurus Scorpio, I learned this in terms of esoteric astrology. These people probably came up in a stressful environment. Well, autistic children didn't necessarily come up in a stressful environment, but it is stressful for them. Autistic children are very sensitive to sound and light.
Yeah.
Taurus Scorpio, these are people, they don't have to be autistic, who are extremely sensitive to subtle vibration. This is why they go into the arts, they go into healing, because I always say they can feel like a spider feels the tug on a web. They can sense energy. If they don't know this about themselves, sometimes they be kind of angry or get very frustrated. But I see a lot of them going into, working with sound, color, vibration, or working in healing areas because they can sense energy. That's what I see most often. And with autistic children, I know at the Spine Museum, they have evenings for autistic children in which they dim the lights and they don't have any sounds, and there's nobody else in the museum. So I know there is this sensitivity to subtle vibrations.
Wow,
that can be
interesting.
highly for autistic children.
Wow, thank you, Lynn. Listen, we have like two minutes left. I want to give you the opportunity just to tell everyone again where they can find your articles, how they can contact you, sign up for your newsletter. So please let everybody know.
My website, I still have a lot to do. I've changed it to WordPress, and I still have a lot of corrections to do, but it's lynnkoiner.com. And what's the good part about my website is you can ask questions about the article, and I'm thrilled to death to answer you. So
that's wonderful.
And I'm not doing readings now because I'm renovating the house, an old 1935 house. But I have, if you write to me at lynn.koiner@gmail, it's LYNN.koiner, KOINER@gmail, and say, I want to get your monthly column. Right now it's a mini column, so I understand where you're too busy to kind of do your newsletter. It's just a mini column of the good days. But then in September, I hope to go back to doing a long monthly column.
That's great.
And the Facebook, I have Lynn Koiner Medical Sharing, and NCGR Annapolis. But if you just look on Facebook for LYNN KOINER, I'll direct you to those pages. And if you ask questions, I try to answer them. I haven't been as good lately because a lot of it is done on an iPhone. And I like a big old desktop. So
we're all rooting for you to get the renovation done so you can get back into communication.
If you have questions about the articles, I always get back to everybody.
Okay.
On my website.
Thank you so much, Lynn. You are you're a treasure. You are just a wealth of information. So I appreciate your making the time to come on the show. I thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. I hope you've all found the information presented here helpful as you continue your karmic evolution in this lifetime. Please be sure to join me next week, July 29th, for another episode of Karmic Evolutions Astrologically Speaking. Until then, may your journey be filled with karmic healing and the joy of greater consciousness. Namaste.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was no barrier, and time it had no hope. Free to come.